A Zelda game without dungeons is like Christmas without presents. Like, you've still got old Saint Nick and you've got a tree and music and food, but where's the mystery of delving into a new dungeon full of unknown secrets, which is actually a very smart comparison to opening presents, which I should be proud of for coming up with. And especially after the stocking filler Sheikah shrines that Breath of the Wild was filled with, we're all hungry for the series to return to traditional Zelda dungeons. And in this episode, this Christmas holiday season spirit-filled dungeon lore episode, I've asked the snowman himself, Konrad from Commonwealth Realm, to help out with explaining all of the lore behind the dungeons of Majora's Mask. How's the weather over there, sir?
It's very Christmassy. Then again, I'm in the winter and mountain wonderland that is Norway. I guess that's why Bandit insisted that I do Majora's Temples of Ice and Rock over on my channel, Snowhead and Stone Tower.
Well, without further ado, let's wrap up the last dungeon lore video of 2022 with a bang, and keep in mind that this video will not delve into the discourse of whether or not Termina is a real place according to the theory of blah blah blah, and of course, spoiler alert, obviously.
The first dungeon we're going to cover in this half of our collaboration is also the first in the game, the pyramid-like Woodfall Temple, located deep in the southern swamp. Now, one thing that's worth going over briefly before starting this list is the fact that the world of Termina is a deeply religious one. Those who have played the game to its completion will no doubt be familiar with that fact. As per the lore of the game, there are 4 deities of the land called the 4 giants who each govern one quadrant of Termina, and the inhabitants of said quadrants each worship their respective giant. This, combined with the fact that the giants themselves are cursed into the dark masks that make up the bosses of the game, which are each located within the temples, means that these temples were more than likely built by the different inhabitants of Termina as places of worship for their giants. Well, at least the ones in this video. For the others, like the Stone Tower Temple, you'll have to hop over to my channel for that one. That being said, there's still certain specific species of lore that are more than worth going over in regards to the temples themselves, even if we already know why they were built. For instance, the Woodfall Temple was probably created by the Deku in order to worship their giant, but its submerged positioning at the top of a mountain that constantly spews water over its edges is quite telling. It could be that the Deku ancestors that built the Woodfall Temple chose this location as a way to provide a blessing upon the waters of the southern swamp, or they were trying to reach higher in order to better commune with the giant, or both. But that's neither here nor there.
Something that's worth noting is the fact that some fans believe that the temple itself was indeed built as a site of worship, but not for the giant of the southern swamp. Because there are technically 2 places of worship for the Deku in Majora's Mask, the other being the Deku Shrine, which is quite the telling name, some fans believe that this means the 2 sites of worship are dedicated to 2 different deities, with the Deku Shrine being dedicated to the southern giant and the Woodfall Temple being dedicated to Odalwa, the giant masked jungle warrior who's responsible for poisoning the waters of the southern swamp with his stank, or at least his mask is. The Majora's Mask manga even outright states that Odalwa is the, quote, god of the southern swamp, who stole the Deku princess due to the Deku king neglecting his tributes to Odalwa. The thing is, none of the Zelda manga are considered canon, and while they constantly bring up very interesting ideas that would conveniently tie up some loose-ended lore, such as the notion that Majora itself once was a beast dragon monster thing that fed upon the desires of humans and danced to bongo music for 3 days straight, leading to its exhaustion and death, after which it was carved into the Majora's Mask, it's still not actual Zelda lore. So, disregarding the entire Odalwa god statement from the manga, we instead have a direct statement from Kaepora Gaebora that before the events of the game, the swamp had already lost its guardian deity. And since Odalwa was still going strong and dancing away inside the Woodfall Temple, this means that the deity of the southern swamp is in fact the southern giant, and therefore the Woodfall Temple and Deku Shrine were more than likely both built to worship the giant, not Odalwa. But anyway, moving on.
Next up, we have the Great Bay Temple, located in, the Great Bay. This temple is hidden from the main playable area in that Link must ride a giant sea turtle in order to approach and enter its interior. But again, the temple itself was most likely built by the Zora people in order to worship the giant of the Great Bay. There are some bosses located within its chambers, such as the wart and another gecko, but Bandit has already gone over the lore of those bosses in his Majora's Mask boss lore video. To be honest, there isn't much left to the imagination for the Great Bay Temple. It is a sea-bound, Zora-built, fish-shaped worship house that corrupted the waters surrounding it for the powers of Majora, and that's about it.
Wow, that was fast, but we wouldn't have made this video if there wasn't anything to talk about, and the biggest topic of them all has been hanging above our heads this whole time.
That's right, it's time to discuss the infamous, nightmare-inducing moon that took the phrase "the man on the moon" to a whole new level. So let's begin with what we know about the moon in-game, and by that I mean, let's discuss the idea of whether or not the intense moon we see in the game is actually the normal moon that the people of Termina are used to. The reason why this is important to nail down initially is because this will determine whether or not the moon itself is actually real. Lots of fans insinuate that the moon really is Termina's regular moon, complete with the eyes and teeth and everything. This is because, all things considered, most of the Terminian people seem to not be concerned or alarmed at all at the moon's appearance and growing size. As the days pass, however, more and more townsfolk leave Clocktown, implying that they are at least concerned about the moon's imminent crash course. But this doesn't prove that the moon is a different moon, it just proves that it was falling. Luckily for us, there are some jugglers that give us some insight into the moon's appearance. When talked to, they say that they are practicing for the big carnival that only happens once in a blue moon. But then they say, or in this year's case, once in a really scary red-eyed moon. This implies that this moon, and specifically its eyes, are abnormal. The regular moon that Terminians are used to, which most likely looks a lot like our own moon, or even the regular old Hyrule's moon, has been either hidden or replaced entirely by the red-eyed moon shown in-game. It's because of this that we are led to the conclusion that the in-game red-eyed moon is actually a magical creation of Majora itself. Majora even possesses the moon after ridding itself of its puppet, the Skull Kid, and when Link chases after the mask and is transported into the moon, the interior does not make any physical sense whatsoever in that there is a field with a tree in the middle and even children running around the place, each wearing one of the masks of the corrupted giants. But Bandit, what do you think? Do you want to take a shot at piecing this all together?
Certainly. Now remember, as always, this is just my own theory/speculative thought process, and you are more than welcome to believe whatever you would like to. But I'm just gonna come out and say it, I think the moon itself is a demon. Think about it, it's not Termina's normal moon, it can fall without affecting, the ocean. It's microscopically small compared to anything that could actually be considered a planetary moon. It's got eyeballs and a nose and... teeth, but furthermore, I think it is Majora. Like, Majora. I mean, on a very surface level of logic, you would think that the possessed Skull Kid calling down the duplicate moon, plus this moon having terrifyingly glaring red eyes, the likes of which are seen on only one other object in the entire game, the Majora's Mask itself, and the fact that the mask enters and possesses the moon would all imply some sort of connection between the two. I think that much is rather obvious, actually. Personally, I even think the fact that the Majora's Mask is a heart shape that sprouts veiny, fleshy limbs is very telling. Perhaps Majora's Mask is literally the heart of the moon. And it's not like any of the Majora's Mask boss forms we fight at the end of the game are referred to as just Majora. It goes from Majora's Mask to Majora's Incarnation to Majora's Wrath, leaving the issue of just who Majora is still at large. Now, I already went super in-depth into the history of Majora's Mask and how it ties into the Happy Mask Salesman and the little Happy Mask Salesman children running around in the moon in my previous Majora's Mask boss lore video, so I won't be redundant and go over all of that again here. But allow me to summarize what we do know about the history of the Majora's Mask. It was created long ago by an ancient tribe and was used for hexing rituals. Eventually it became too problematic and the ancient tribe decided to hide it away. So what if, after countless years have passed and the mask was finally given a body to possess and channel its power through, the entity within the mask was able to form a body once again in the form of the celestial moon, and out of its anger towards the ancient tribe that hid it away in the shadows, decides to crash into the earth, destroying the world. I mean, it even cries, which combined with its angry facial expression all but proves the fact that the moon is hurting, angry. Perhaps the story of Majora's Mask and the Skull Kid and Termina and the destruction of the world is really the story of the spirit within the mask, presumably Majora itself, seeking revenge on its captors. Now, it is absolutely possible that everything I just said is complete nonsense. The mask itself does not have to have any ties to some other being named Majora. The mask could have just created the moon because it wanted to create a moon, giving a little bit of its own likeness and having it destroy the world because that sounded fun, I guess? But hey, it's Christmas. You get to choose what you'd like to believe since none of this is confirmed anywhere in game. And if you'd like a deeper look into the character of Majora and the Happy Mask Salesman, be sure to check out my Majora's Mask boss lore video. But for now, that's the end of the list. Due to Majora's Mask only having 5, well, really just 4 dungeons in it, this one was pretty short. But I still wanted to keep up the tradition of having a fellow Zelda lore creator on board in order to help explain the dungeons. And speaking of which, huge thanks to Mr. Konrad of the Commonwealth Realm for helping out with this one.
Now that we have done the tropical and well scary and messed up dungeons, let's do 2 temples that are more in line with the season of this upload. Snow, ice, stone, and a little bit of Christianity. So head over to my channel for the Snowhead and Stone Tower temples.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you're still watching this, please consider leaving a like on the video to get it spread around on YouTube, and subscribe if you haven't already to stick around for all the juicy video game lore diving nuggets of joy I will be producing in 2023 and beyond. Huge thanks as always to my bandit crew who make my day every single day. Be sure to follow me on my socials, and that's about all I've got for this one. This is Bandit, looking forward to seeing you over on Konrad's channel, and signing out. Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas!